Listen to me carefully. People of God, there are moments in life when you realize that what is happening around you cannot be explained by logic, by strength, by connections, or by human wisdom. There are moments when you stand in the middle of storms that should have destroyed you, yet you remain standing. There are moments when danger passes so close to you that you feel its breath, yet it cannot touch you. And when you look back, you begin to understand that there is a hand, not an ordinary hand, but a divine hand guiding, shielding, separating, and preserving. Today, I am not speaking about ordinary survival. I am not speaking about luck. I am not speaking about coincidence. I am speaking about a life marked by divine distinction, a life surrounded by invisible walls of protection, a life that heaven itself has set apart for a purpose greater than personal comfort. When God sets a life apart, He does not announce it with noise. He announces it with evidence. He announces it with patterns. He announces it with spiritual signatures that cannot be denied. Look around the world today. Many people are alive, but not many are preserved. Many people are moving, but not many are protected. Many people are successful, but not many are divinely covered. Yet there are certain lives that carry an unusual shield. No matter the attack, no matter the plot, no matter the pressure, something always intervenes. Something always interrupts destruction. Something always rewrites the story. That is not accident. That is separation by divine protection. Listen to me. When God places His hand upon a life, danger becomes a messenger instead of a destroyer. Trouble becomes a teacher instead of a terminator. Challenges become a platform instead of a prison. What should have buried that life becomes the very ground upon which destiny stands taller. Have you ever wondered why some people pass through experiences that should have broken them, yet they emerge stronger? Have you ever wondered why certain doors close, yet better doors open at the exact moment they are needed? Have you ever wondered why certain relationships collapse, yet new connections appear with divine timing? Have you ever wondered why certain plans fail, yet those failures later reveal hidden mercy? That is not random. That is divine intervention working silently behind the scenes. When God protects a life, He does not always remove the storm. Sometimes He removes the damage. Sometimes He allows the storm to come, but He controls its intensity. Sometimes He allows the battle to happen, but He controls the outcome. Sometimes He allows the fire to burn, but He controls the effect of the flame. That is the mystery of divine protection. Listen to this truth. Not everyone who is attacked is abandoned. Not everyone who is tested is rejected. Not everyone who is delayed is denied. There are lives that heaven is shaping through pressure, refining through trials, and separating through unusual experiences. The world may not understand it. Friends may not understand it. Even the person experiencing it may not understand it at first. But when the pattern becomes clear, the heart begins to realize there is a hand upon this life. There are people who walk through life with invisible escorts. They enter places where danger lives, yet danger cannot recognize them. They stand where others fall, yet they remain standing. They lose what others depend on, yet they do not lose hope. They are surrounded by enemies, yet they are not consumed by hatred. They are misunderstood, yet they are not destroyed by loneliness. They are delayed, yet they are not denied destiny. Do you know why? Because when God sets a life apart, He becomes personally involved in its story. Let me tell you something deep. When God protects a life, He does not just protect the body, He protects the purpose. He does not just protect the present, He protects the future. He does not just protect the visible, He protects the invisible. There are attacks you never saw. There are traps you never stepped into. There are accidents you never experienced. There are betrayals that never reached you. There are plans of darkness that never matured. Why? Because something blocked them before they reached you. Many people think divine protection means a life without pain. No. Divine protection means a life that pain cannot finish. Many people think divine protection means a life without tears. No. Divine protection means tears that do not drown destiny. Many people think divine protection means a life without battles. No. Divine protection means battles that cannot steal purpose. Listen carefully. When God separates a life, He creates unusual boundaries around it. Those boundaries are not physical, yet they are real. People may try to cross them, but they fail. Situations may try to invade, but they collapse. Darkness may try to penetrate, but it is confused. That is why certain people are attacked repeatedly, yet never destroyed. That is why certain people face repeated opposition, yet never disappear. That is why certain people are targeted, yet never terminated. Look back at your own story. How many times should you have been finished? How many times should you have been erased? How many times should your name have disappeared? How many times should your future have ended? Yet here you are, still breathing, still dreaming, still rising, still moving forward. That is not ordinary survival. That is divine preservation. There are people who have walked through valleys where others died. There are people who have lived through seasons where others lost their minds. There are people who have faced storms where others lost their faith. There are people who have experienced betrayal where others lost their identity. Yet somehow, something inside them refused to die. Do you know why? Because when God sets a life apart, He plants an indestructible seed inside it. No matter how hard the ground, that seed refuses to die. No matter how dark the night, that seed refuses to disappear. No matter how cold the season, that seed refuses to freeze. Listen to me, people of God. There is a difference between being protected and being spoiled. There is a difference between being separated and being privileged. When God protects a life, He does not always make it comfortable. He makes it purposeful. He does not always make it easy. He makes it meaningful. He does not always make it fast. He makes it accurate. Sometimes God allows isolation so that distraction will not destroy destiny. Sometimes God allows rejection so that wrong connections will not poison purpose. Sometimes God allows delay so that premature success will not ruin the future. Sometimes God allows misunderstanding so that pride will not grow in the heart. You may not understand it when it happens, but later you will look back and say, if that had not happened, I would not be here today. That is the mystery of divine protection. There are lives that heaven protects not because they are perfect, but because they are chosen. Not because they are flawless, but because they are useful. Not because they are strong, but because they are assigned. Listen carefully. When God assigns a destiny, He also assigns protection. When God releases a purpose, He also releases preservation. When God plants a calling, He also builds a shield around it. That is why certain people cannot die easily. That is why certain people cannot be destroyed easily. That is why certain people cannot be erased easily. Because heaven has invested too much in them to allow them to be wasted. Look at the pattern. When others fall into traps, somehow you escape. When others are swallowed by darkness, somehow you find light. When others are destroyed by pressure, somehow you become stronger. When others give up, somehow you continue. That is not stubbornness. That is destiny refusing to die. Sometimes the protection of God appears as discomfort. Sometimes it appears as interruption. Sometimes it appears as disappointment. Sometimes it appears as separation. Sometimes it appears as closed doors. Sometimes it appears as broken plans. But listen to this truth. A closed door can be protection. A failed plan can be mercy. A broken relationship can be rescue. A delay can be deliverance. A rejection can be redirection. When God protects a life, He does not always explain Himself. He simply acts. There are people who look at your life and think you are unlucky. They do not understand that what they call bad luck is actually divine shielding. They do not understand that what they call delay is actually divine timing. They do not understand that what they call loss is actually divine replacement. Listen to me. When God sets a life apart, He trains it through unusual experiences. He teaches it lessons others never learn. He exposes it to realities others never see. He allows it to walk through fire, not to burn it, but to refine it. That is why such a life develops unusual discernment. That is why such a life develops unusual resilience. That is why such a life develops unusual sensitivity to danger. That is why such a life develops unusual wisdom beyond age. It is not pride, it is training. When God protects a life, He also sharpens it. He allows it to see beyond appearances. He allows it to feel danger before danger appears. He allows it to sense wrong before wrong happens. He allows it to withdraw before destruction arrives. That is not fear. That is spiritual awareness. Listen carefully. There are people who are not just living. They are being guarded. There are people who are not just walking. They are being guided. There are people who are not just surviving. They are being preserved. Sometimes you feel an unexplainable urge to leave a place. Later you hear what happened there. Sometimes you feel an unexplainable resistance to accept an offer. Later you see what that offer would have done. Sometimes you feel an unexplainable discomfort around certain people. Later you discover their intentions. That is not imagination. That is divine warning. When God protects a life, He speaks in subtle ways. He whispers through intuition. He guides through inner conviction. He warns through restlessness. He redirects through discomfort. Many people ignore these signals and fall into traps. But a life set apart learns to listen. Listen to me. Divine protection is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet. It is not always visible. Sometimes it is invisible. It is not always loud. Sometimes it is silent. But its results are undeniable. Look at your journey again. How many times did things fall apart only to fall into place later? How many times did you lose something only to gain something greater? How many times did you cry over something that later became a blessing? That is not confusion. That is divine orchestration. When God sets a life apart, He rewrites its story again and again. He edits chapters that would have ended in tragedy. He changes plots that would have destroyed destiny. He rearranges scenes that would have led to ruin. People may not understand your journey. They may judge your pace. They may criticize your path. They may misunderstand your decisions. But they do not see the invisible battles you survived. They do not see the unseen hands that rescued you. They do not see the spiritual negotiations that preserved your life. Listen carefully. A life under divine protection is not always admired. Sometimes it is misunderstood. It is not always celebrated. Sometimes it is isolated. It is not always applauded. Sometimes it is attacked, but it is always preserved. Sometimes you feel tired of fighting battles you did not start. Sometimes you feel exhausted by challenges you did not choose. Sometimes you feel lonely because your journey is different from others. But hear this truth. Difference is not punishment, it is calling. Isolation is not rejection, it is preparation. Pressure is not destruction, it is refinement. When God sets a life apart, He prepares it for responsibilities others cannot handle. He trains it for assignments others cannot carry. He equips it for impact others cannot imagine. That is why ordinary environments feel uncomfortable. That is why shallow conversations feel empty. That is why meaningless pursuits feel unbearable. Because a protected life is designed for depth, not surface. It is designed for purpose, not popularity. It is designed for impact, not applause. Listen to me, people of God. There are people who think they are cursed because their lives are difficult. They do not realize that difficulty is sometimes the evidence of calling. They do not realize that opposition is sometimes proof of assignment. They do not realize that resistance is sometimes confirmation of destiny. When darkness fights a life, it is because that life carries light. When confusion attacks a mind, it is because that mind carries clarity. When fear targets a heart, It is because that heart carries courage. No one attacks what is useless. That is why divine protection is not just about survival, it is about significance. When God protects a life, He does not just save it from danger, He preserves it for impact. He does not just rescue it from harm, He prepares it for influence. He does not just keep it alive, He keeps it relevant. Look at the timing of your survival. You survived not too early and not too late. You escaped not by chance but by precision. You arrived not randomly but by design. That is divine timing. Sometimes you feel like your life is delayed compared to others. But listen carefully. Delay is not denial. Delay is often alignment. When God protects a life, He refuses to allow it to arrive before it is ready. He refuses to allow it to rise before it is rooted. He refuses to allow it to shine before it is shaped. Because premature success can destroy destiny. Listen to me. There are people who reached heights quickly and lost everything quickly. There are people who became famous overnight and disappeared overnight. There are people who gained power without wisdom and destroyed themselves. But a protected life is guided slowly, carefully, deliberately. You may not understand why your journey is slow, but heaven understands why it must be slow. Because when God sets a life apart, He values its future more than its speed. There are moments when you feel like giving up. There are moments when you feel misunderstood. There are moments when you feel tired of fighting. But something inside you refuses to quit. That is not stubbornness. That is divine preservation. Listen carefully. When God protects a life, He also protects its mind. He prevents despair from consuming it. He prevents bitterness from destroying it. He prevents hatred from poisoning it. Even when wounded, it does not become wicked. Even when betrayed, it does not become bitter. Even when rejected, it does not become hateful. That is a sign of divine touch. Because many people go through pain and become monsters. But a protected life goes through pain and becomes mature. When God sets a life apart, He does not just protect it from external danger, He protects it from internal destruction. He guards the heart, He guards the mind, He guards the spirit. That is why such a life may cry, but it does not collapse. It may bend, but it does not break. It may struggle, but it does not surrender. Listen to me, people of God. There are people who have survived things that should have erased them from history. There are people who have endured storms that should have destroyed their identity. There are people who have faced darkness that should have consumed their future. Yet they are still here. Not because they are strong, but because they are protected. And when you understand this, you stop complaining about your journey and start respecting it. You stop comparing your path with others and start appreciating your calling. You stop questioning your delays and start trusting divine timing, because you realize that your life is not ordinary, it is not random, it is not accidental, it is guarded. Listen carefully. When God sets a life apart, He does not remove all enemies, He confuses them. He does not remove all storms, He limits them. He does not remove all battles, He controls them. That is why attacks come but do not succeed. That is why threats appear but do not materialize. That is why danger approaches but does not prevail. There is a hand, and that hand is not human. When you finally understand this, you stop living in fear. You stop shrinking before threats. You stop doubting your future, because you know that as long as purpose remains, protection remains. Listen to me. A life under divine protection is not perfect, but it is preserved. It is not painless, but it is purposeful. It is not easy, but it is eternal in significance. So when you look at your story again, do not focus only on the scars. Look at the survival. Do not focus only on the battles. Look at the victories. Do not focus only on the tears. Look at the preservation. Because many people did not make it out of what you survived. Many people did not recover from what you endured. Many people did not rise from what you overcame. Yet here you stand, not by power, not by might, but by a hand that refuses to let you fall. And that is the mystery of a life set apart by divine protection. Listen to me carefully. There is a kind of preservation that cannot be explained by effort, by wisdom, by planning, or by strength. There is a kind of survival that does not come from strategy, from connections, from intelligence, or from experience. There is a kind of protection that operates beyond human calculation, beyond human ability, beyond human understanding. When you look at it with the eyes of logic, it makes no sense. When you analyze it with the mind of reason, it appears impossible. Yet it happens again and again in the lives of certain people, quietly, consistently, mysteriously. Many people think they are alive because they were careful. They think they succeeded because they were smart. They think they survived because they were strong. But if they were honest with themselves, they would admit that there were moments when care was not enough, when wisdom was not enough, when strength was not enough. There were moments when everything they relied on failed, yet something else intervened. Something invisible stepped in where effort stopped. Something unseen carried them where ability ended. Look at your life deeply. There were times when you did not know what to do. There were times when you had no plan. There were times when you had no strength left. There were times when you had no one to help you. Yet you did not collapse. Yet you did not disappear. Yet you did not lose everything. That is not human effort. That is preservation beyond effort. There are people who worked harder than you, yet they failed. There are people who planned better than you, yet they collapsed. There are people who were more qualified than you, yet they disappeared. There are people who had more support than you, yet they were destroyed. But you are still here, not because you are better, but because something beyond effort has been working in your story. Human effort has limits. Human wisdom has boundaries. Human strength has an ending point. Human protection has weaknesses. Human plans have loopholes. Human support has conditions. But divine preservation has no limits. It does not depend on your mood. It does not depend on your strength. It does not depend on your perfection. It does not depend on your understanding. It operates even when you are unaware of it. There are dangers you never saw. There are traps you never recognized. There are attacks you never knew existed. There are accidents you never experienced. There are betrayals you never encountered. There are disasters you never entered. Not because they were not real, but because something blocked them before they reached you. Sometimes you were walking towards something that looked attractive, yet suddenly something stopped you. Sometimes you were about to make a decision that felt right, yet suddenly you felt uneasy. Sometimes you trusted someone with all your heart, yet suddenly circumstances separated you. Sometimes you planned something with confidence, yet suddenly it collapsed without explanation. At that time, you felt disappointed, confused, even angry. But later, when you saw what could have happened, you realized that what you thought was failure was actually rescue. Human effort would have pushed forward. Human logic would have insisted. Human pride would have refused to stop. But preservation beyond effort interrupted the journey. There are moments when you look back and realize that if things had gone the way you wanted, you would not be alive today. If certain doors had opened, you would have entered destruction. If certain relationships had continued, you would have lost your identity. If certain opportunities had succeeded, you would have lost your destiny. If certain plans had worked, you would have destroyed your future. Yet they failed. Yet they broke. Yet they ended. Not because you were unlucky, but because you were preserved. Many people think preservation means a life without trouble. No. Preservation means a life that trouble cannot finish. Many people think preservation means a life without pain. No. Preservation means pain that cannot destroy purpose. Many people think preservation means a life without tears. No. Preservation means tears that cannot drown destiny. There are people who passed through storms and disappeared. There are people who faced pressure and lost their minds. There are people who encountered betrayal and lost their faith. There are people who experienced loss and lost their identity. But there are others who went through the same storms and came out stronger. They went through the same pressure and became wiser. They went through the same betrayal and became deeper. They went through the same loss and became more focused. The difference is not effort. The difference is preservation beyond effort. Sometimes you wonder why you survived what others could not survive. Sometimes you wonder why you recovered from what others never recovered from. Sometimes you wonder why you stood up from what others never stood up from. Sometimes you wonder why you still have hope when others lost hope. Sometimes you wonder why you still have dreams when others gave up. That is not because you are special by human standards. That is because there is a hand beyond human effort. There are moments when you should have been destroyed by your own mistakes. There are moments when your own decisions should have ruined you. There are moments when your own weaknesses should have exposed you. There are moments when your own ignorance should have harmed you. Yet you were spared. Yet you were corrected. Yet you were redirected. Yet you were rescued. Human effort did not save you from yourself. Something else did. Sometimes preservation works by removing you from places you love. Sometimes it works by separating you from people you trust. Sometimes it works by breaking systems you depend on. Sometimes it works by frustrating plans you cherish. Sometimes it works by delaying dreams you desire. But behind all these painful experiences, something is working quietly to protect what you cannot protect by yourself. There are people who are alive today not because they were careful, but because they were covered. There are people who are successful today not because they were brilliant, but because they were guided. There are people who are stable today not because they were disciplined, but because they were guarded. Human effort can build walls, but divine preservation builds invisible barriers. Human effort can predict danger, but divine preservation senses danger before it appears. Human effort can fight enemies, but divine preservation confuses enemies before they attack. Human effort can repair damage, but divine preservation prevents damage before it happens. Sometimes you entered environments where others failed. Sometimes you walked paths where others fell. Sometimes you faced systems where others were crushed. Sometimes you encountered people who destroyed others. Yet you were not destroyed. Yet you were not crushed. Yet you were not erased. That is not because you were stronger. That is because something stronger than effort surrounded you. There are people who think you are lucky. They do not know what you have survived. They do not know what you have escaped. They do not know what you have avoided. They do not know what was planned against you. They only see the result, not the battles. They only see the survival, not the threats. They only see the victory, not the dangers. They call it luck, but you know it is something deeper. Preservation beyond effort does not always announce itself. It does not always make noise. It does not always show signs. Sometimes it works silently, invisibly, mysteriously. You may not even realize it when it is happening. You only understand it later when you look back and connect the dots. Sometimes you were late to a place and felt frustrated. Later you heard what happened there at the time you should have arrived. Sometimes you missed an opportunity and felt disappointed. Later you saw what that opportunity would have done to you. Sometimes you lost a relationship and felt broken. Later you discovered what that relationship was hiding. Sometimes you failed an exam, a job, a project, and felt humiliated. Later you realized that success there would have trapped you in a wrong path. Preservation beyond effort was working while you were complaining. There are moments when your life seems chaotic. Plans change suddenly. Directions shift unexpectedly. People leave without explanation. Doors close without warning. Opportunities vanish without reason. At that moment you feel confused, unstable, insecure. But if you could see beyond the visible, you would realize that chaos is sometimes the shape of divine order. Confusion is sometimes the disguise of divine alignment. Loss is sometimes the form of divine protection. Human effort tries to control everything. It tries to understand everything. It tries to predict everything. It tries to secure everything. But preservation beyond effort operates where control ends. It intervenes where understanding fails. It guides where prediction is impossible. It secures what human effort cannot secure. Sometimes you feel like your life is fragile. Sometimes you feel like everything could collapse at any moment. Sometimes you feel like you are walking on thin ground. Yet somehow you do not fall. Somehow you do not break. Somehow you do not disappear. That is because your life is not sustained by effort alone. It is sustained by something deeper. There are people who rely entirely on their intelligence, yet they collapse. There are people who rely entirely on their money, yet they fall. There are people who rely entirely on their connections, yet they fail. There are people who rely entirely on their strength, yet they break. But there are others who survive beyond logic, beyond calculation, beyond expectation, because their preservation is not rooted in effort. Sometimes you feel weak, yet you survive. Sometimes you feel lost, yet you find direction. Sometimes you feel empty, yet you continue. Sometimes you feel tired, yet you rise again. Human effort would have stopped. Human strength would have given up. Human wisdom would have surrendered. But preservation beyond effort kept you moving. There are people who went through less than you and gave up. There are people who experienced smaller challenges and collapsed. There are people who faced lighter storms and drowned. Yet you faced heavier storms and survived. You faced deeper wounds and healed. You faced stronger opposition and stood firm. That is not because you are tougher. That is because something beyond toughness preserved you. Sometimes preservation works by changing your desires. You suddenly lose interest in things that would have destroyed you. You suddenly feel disconnected from paths that would have harmed you. You suddenly feel uncomfortable in environments that would have trapped you. You suddenly feel uninterested in opportunities that would have misled you. Human effort did not create that shift. Something deeper did. Sometimes preservation works by exposing truths. Secrets come out, lies are revealed, masks fall, hidden intentions become visible. At first it hurts. At first it shocks. At first it destabilizes you. But later, you realize that if those truths had remained hidden, you would have been destroyed. Sometimes preservation works by limiting your reach. You want more, but you receive less. You dream bigger, but you are delayed. You desire faster, but you move slower. You aim higher, but you are restricted. At first, it feels like injustice. But later, you realize that if you had reached what you wanted too quickly, you would not have survived it. Human effort always wants speed. Preservation beyond effort values survival over speed, depth over display, stability over appearance. There are people who reached heights quickly and fell quickly. There are people who gained influence suddenly and lost everything suddenly. There are people who achieved success without preparation and destroyed themselves. But there are others who moved slowly, painfully, quietly, and survived. Not because they were weak, but because they were preserved. Sometimes you feel like you are behind others. Sometimes you feel like your life is delayed compared to your peers. Sometimes you feel like everyone is moving ahead while you are stuck. But what you do not see is that many people who moved ahead quickly are moving toward collapse, while you are being held back for survival. Preservation beyond effort is not concerned with competition. It is concerned with destiny. There are moments when you feel like quitting. There are moments when you feel like disappearing. There are moments when you feel like surrendering. Yet something inside you refuses to die. Something inside you refuses to give up. Something inside you refuses to disappear. That is not willpower alone. That is preservation working within you. Sometimes your mind is tired but your spirit continues. Sometimes your body is weak, but your purpose remains strong. Sometimes your emotions are broken, but your vision survives. Human effort would have collapsed, but preservation beyond effort sustains what effort cannot sustain. There are people who should have lost everything, but did not. There are people who should have been erased, but remained. There are people who should have been forgotten, but survived. There are people who should have died, but lived. When you look at their stories, you realize that something beyond effort was at work. Sometimes you were at the wrong place at the wrong time, yet nothing happened to you. Sometimes you were surrounded by danger, yet you were untouched. Sometimes you were exposed to risk, yet you were protected. Sometimes you were vulnerable, yet you were preserved. Human effort could not have guaranteed that outcome. Sometimes you were careless, yet you were spared. Sometimes you were ignorant, yet you were protected. Sometimes you were naive, yet you were guided. Sometimes you were wrong, yet you were corrected. Human effort did not deserve that mercy. Preservation beyond effort provided it. There are moments when you realize that your life is not in your hands alone. There are moments when you realize that if everything depended on your effort, you would not be here today. There are moments when you realize that your mistakes were too many, your weaknesses were too strong, your ignorance was too deep, your vulnerabilities were too exposed, yet you survived. Preservation beyond effort does not mean you will never fall. It means you will not fall permanently. It does not mean you will never fail. It means failure will not define you. It does not mean you will never be wounded. It means wounds will not destroy you. Sometimes you fall, but you rise again. Sometimes you fail, but you learn. Sometimes you are wounded, but you heal. Sometimes you are delayed, but you arrive. Sometimes you are confused, but you find clarity. Human effort alone cannot guarantee such resilience. There are people who experienced less pain and became bitter. There are people who faced smaller challenges and became cruel. There are people who suffered little and became broken. But there are others who suffered deeply and became wise, compassionate, strong, grounded. That is not effort. That is preservation shaping character. Sometimes preservation beyond effort does not just protect you from external danger, it protects you from becoming something you were not meant to be. It protects you from losing your humanity. It protects you from losing your values. It protects you from losing your soul. You could have become hard, but you remained soft. You could have become cruel, but you remained compassionate. You could have become hopeless, but you remained hopeful. You could have become hateful, but you remained forgiving. Human effort would not have preserved your heart in the middle of pain. Something beyond effort did. Sometimes you see people who went through similar experiences and became monsters. They became bitter, arrogant, destructive, cold, empty. But you went through similar experiences and remained human. That is not because you are morally superior. That is because preservation beyond effort guarded your inner world. Sometimes you look at your life and realize that you are not where you planned to be, but you are also not where you could have been. You are not at the height you imagined, but you are also not in the destruction you escaped. You are somewhere in between, alive, stable, still moving. That is preservation beyond effort. Human effort often pushes people to extremes. Preservation beyond effort keeps people within boundaries that protect their future. Sometimes you feel like your story is strange. It does not follow a straight line. It is full of interruptions, changes, reversals, detours, surprises. But when you look deeper, you realize that every detour saved you from a disaster, every interruption protected you from a trap, every reversal rescued you from a wrong direction. Preservation beyond effort does not follow human logic. It follows a higher pattern. Sometimes you meet people who do not understand your journey. They judge your choices. They criticize your pace. They question your decisions. They compare your life with others. They think you are slow, confused, inconsistent, unlucky, but they do not see what you have been saved from. They do not see what you have avoided. They do not see what you have escaped. If they could see what you did not enter, what you did not experience, what you did not suffer, they would understand that your story is not failure. It is preservation. Sometimes you feel like you are fighting battles that others do not fight. Sometimes you feel like you are carrying burdens that others do not carry. Sometimes you feel like you are walking paths that others do not walk. But what you do not see is that you are also being protected in ways others are not protected. There are people who live easy lives but collapse when real challenges come. There are people who never face resistance but disappear when pressure appears. But there are others who face constant pressure and yet remain standing, because their lives are not sustained by ease, but by preservation beyond effort. Sometimes you feel like your life is fragile, but it is not. It is guarded. Sometimes you feel like your future is uncertain, but it is not. It is protected. Sometimes you feel like your journey is unstable, but it is not. It is guided. Human effort is visible. Preservation beyond effort is invisible. But invisibility does not mean absence. It means mystery. Sometimes you will never know how many times you were saved. Sometimes you will never know how many disasters were diverted. Sometimes you will never know how many attacks were blocked. Sometimes you will never know how many traps were dismantled. But you do not need to know. The evidence is your survival. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not what happened to you, but what did not happen to you. Sometimes the greatest testimony is not what you achieved, but what you escaped. Sometimes the greatest proof of preservation is not your success, but your survival. Human effort could not have written your story this way. Human wisdom could not have arranged your journey like this. Human strength could not have sustained you through all this. Something beyond effort has been writing your story silently. And when you finally understand this, you stop boasting in your effort and start respecting the invisible hand that has been carrying you. You stop trusting only your strength and start acknowledging the unseen support. You stop attributing everything to your intelligence and start recognizing the mystery behind your survival. Because when you look honestly at your life, you realize that if everything depended on you, you would not be here today. And yet you are here, breathing, standing, moving, dreaming, rising. Not because you were perfect, not because you were strong enough, not because you were wise enough, not because you tried hard enough, but because preservation beyond human effort has been surrounding your life from places you never saw, from dangers you never recognized, from battles you never understood, from destructions you never entered, from endings you never reached, from darkness you never fully encountered, from losses you never fully suffered, from collapses you never fully experienced, from failures that never finished you, from storms that never drowned you, from fires that never consumed you, from wounds that never killed your spirit, from mistakes that never erased your destiny, from weaknesses that never destroyed your future, from limitations that never defined your identity, from delays that never cancelled your purpose, from detours that never eliminated your calling, from interruptions that never ended your journey, from silence that never erased your voice, from isolation that never destroyed your relevance, from pressure that never crushed your soul, from confusion that never stole your direction, from fear that never conquered your courage, from darkness that never swallowed your light, from threats that never fulfilled their intentions, from enemies that never succeeded in their plans, from traps that never closed around you, from accidents that never claimed you, from disasters that never reached you, from endings that never finished your story, from conclusions that never became final, from limits that never stopped your movement, from impossibilities that never defined your outcome, from chaos that never swallowed your order, from uncertainty that never erased your hope, from despair that never conquered your faith, from exhaustion that never killed your purpose, from emptiness that never destroyed your meaning, from silence that never ended your song, from shadows that never extinguished your light, from nights that never erased your dawn, from valleys that never buried your vision, from mountains that never stopped your climb, from storms that never erased your direction, from waves that never swallowed your identity, from winds that never scattered your purpose, from battles that never erased your name, from history that never forgot you, from time that never cancelled you, from circumstances that never finished you, from realities that never defeated you, from forces that never controlled you, from patterns that never trapped you, from cycles that never destroyed you, from systems that never erased you, from structures that never limited you, from expectations that never imprisoned you, from definitions that never reduced you, from labels that never confined you, from judgments that never destroyed you, from misunderstandings that never erased you, from accusations that never ended you, from betrayals that never finished you, from loneliness that never consumed you, from silence that never erased your existence, from invisibility that never cancelled your impact, from weakness that never ended your strength, from fragility that never destroyed your resilience, from vulnerability that never erased your survival, from humanity that never ended your preservation, from effort that was never enough but never needed to be enough, because something beyond effort has been holding you, carrying you, guarding you, surrounding you, preserving you, sustaining you, lifting you, redirecting you, shielding you, covering you, guiding you, protecting you, keeping you, stabilizing you, anchoring you, restoring you, correcting you, strengthening you, shaping you, refining you, guarding your steps, guarding your mind, guarding your heart, guarding your future, guarding your purpose, guarding your identity, guarding your destiny, guarding your journey, guarding your breath, guarding your story, guarding your existence, guarding your tomorrow, guarding your unseen battles, guarding your hidden struggles, guarding your silent cries, guarding your unspoken fears, guarding your fragile hopes, guarding your wounded dreams, guarding your unfinished journey, guarding your becoming, guarding your rising, guarding your unfolding, guarding your transformation, guarding your continuity, guarding your survival, guarding your meaning, guarding your relevance, guarding your assignment, guarding your calling, guarding your impact, guarding your legacy, guarding your light, guarding your voice, guarding your presence, guarding your future, guarding your path, guarding your direction, guarding your steps, guarding your movement, guarding your essence, guarding your life, guarding your existence, guarding your purpose, guarding your becoming, guarding your journey, guarding your tomorrow, guarding your story, guarding your destiny, guarding your survival, guarding your breath, guarding your rising, guarding your unfolding, guarding your continuity, guarding your identity, guarding your essence, guarding your meaning, guarding your existence, guarding your journey, guarding your future, guarding your survival, guarding your purpose, guarding your light, guarding your voice, guarding your steps, guarding your movement, guarding your becoming, guarding your destiny, guarding your life,